I'm at the beach, I'm at the beach, I'm at the beach.
So I'm at my dad's funeral, and I look over, and I see my son, who gives me this wink, like, it's all good, I've done this before, this ain't really nothing new to me, I know this was your pops, but, you know, it is what it is. To the point that I realized, like, oh, wow, there's so much stuff that he wanted to do but wasn't able to do. And there was so much more that he may have wanted to accomplish, but for whatever reason, didn't or couldn't put him in that space. Regardless of who or what, though, what I saw in the generational aspect of my particular family at that point, as now my mother's or my great-grandmother's son and daughter being laid to rest before her, really shows me that a lot of the things that are left, or what we perceive to be left undone, really don't matter to the dead at all. It matters more to us. And at that point, I felt kind of, selfish for thinking about things that really this man no longer has the need to think about. And this is where, in checking oneself, even as a so-called metaphysician, master teacher, whatever, I still grew up poor and all of that like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? And therefore, there's still psychic trauma that I'll be dealing with like everybody else for the rest of their life. No matter how elevated one gets or one is perceived to have gotten in this point of our so-called Saturn returns. You know what I'm saying? There's a universal principle of matter becoming antimatter that is paramount, life forms coming up with self-sustainable systems. Yet, our particular Terran stance on this has been to predominantly authenticate the struggle, be the struggle, live the struggle, to the point it has now become the object of spiritual resolution. The hard part was originally was made hard for us to be able to rise above it, not use it as a metronome to guide our progress, or to show how real we are. Because in the end, if I was to show you a skull of a king, a skull of a scholar, a skull of a murderer, and a skull of a virgin, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Who was who? Unless you understood phrenology and the size and width of skull, distances between the septum or the deviated septum, all of that. Our community has reached a point where it is on the verge of so-called mainstream. And as great as that is, we still do not have a unified voice. We have voices which are great, because everybody's supposed to be in a vine and fig tree. However, you never hear the white Lutheran pastor going in on the white Protestant preacher. You never hear the Episcopalian pastor going against the megachurch dude or banging on each other based upon how they view the interpretation of the gospel in the New Testament. You can have 3 and 4 churches, especially in Brooklyn, on one block, all basically preaching the same thing, and each one sustain itself. No matter how raggedy or rickety you look on the outside, people still going in, and it's usually old black women. What that shows me is that original people want to have a vessel to put their faith and praise into, because that was imprinted in us. Or those of us that became more earthbound, that aspect of the tribe of Shabazz that went further into the jungles of so-called Africa that we call North Central and South Africa, which is North Central and South America. In ancient times, culminating under the term or the nomenclature, the tribe of children of Ham. Who basically subdued the Australopithecus afarensis and turned it into an Australopithecus africanus, so-called precursor to the silverback gorilla, the so-called Sasquatch and Yeti and all that stuff they talk about. That's why they tie them so much with the African and mythology and stuff like that, because the African tribes were, or at least the ones, the Asiatics that became so-called African, or what we would perceive phenotypically African today, went into and basically domesticated them the same way you would domesticate a show monkey or something like that. You want another piece? Okay. I'll bring you something, John. Yeah, I'll bring you something. So it became a system of domestication on Earth at a certain time, where everything was being put to the foot of what would become modern man. But mankind had its own evolution that was analogous to man's on what they call the evolutionary scale. So at the time of these great empires we're talking about, you have another group of people that are being culminated and marginalized and caucused in one specific part of Asia. And so this long ago history that we have not only forgotten but internalized in what seems to be the negative aspect so much that we don't even have a viable plan of getting together, much less coming up with a viable strategy to deal with the fact that we're tribes and clans that make up a people, more so than the people that make up tribes and clans. We all have genetic forefathers, but if they can trace back the genetics of an so-called African-American male from South Carolina over 500,000 years here, it means he was here before Everybody else they claimed was here was here. He was here at the time of the great mound and temple building that erected some of the great super cities like ancient Manhattan, that had a longhouse that stretched the entire island. One huge, huge longhouse that went on the breadth of the entire island. Inside of it had whole cities and structures and people and all of that. Went all the way up into Canada. Excuse me, had another one that went all the way up into Canada. It's impossible for us to almost envision a time in which we were and are totally free. Because we're so consumed every day with the stuff that's happening, and it's having an effect on us. It's having an effect on me. It had an effect on my father and his father. But it don't affect them now because they both dead. So as I am now and still affected and do affect some sort of change I hope to make in the world, my world, in my universe, I can't be so arrogant to think that everybody is going to view it and assume to view it the same way. That would be hypocritical to the nature of what it is we are striving to be, which is free. The revolution is the price for and of the freedom. The freedom is symbolized by the fire-green cap, the liberty cap. That's the Moors. To me, though, you know what I'm saying? But again, my view of Moor is more, I think, universal than a lot of other people who consider themselves that and people who consider themselves that. So I'm more libertarian in my view of whether you're a Rasta, you still are more than me, because the Moorish Empire before the Rastafarian Empire. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't even called Ethiopia and all of that. Abyssinia, and that was Axumite. And Axum is part of Sheikh Amexum. You know what I'm saying? So Axumite is still Coptic Christianity that still recognizes Moorish science of the Eastern Empire. That was under the Pelagian Empire, which we call the Byzantine or the Byzantine, which gave way to the Mystic Turks taking it in response to the expulsion of Granada, of which now, centuries later, we, the remnants and descendants of that great conflict, have now awakened to an aspect of our reality that has been over 100 years present in this society. Yet, due to the overwhelming disinformation campaign that's been going on since the founder returned, we now all are caught up in having to prove whether or not our ideology is the ideology for all black people to follow. And that is ludicrous. Not every black person was a part of the Moorish Empire. You know what I'm saying? And the Moorish Empire was not specifically regaled to black people. It was those black people at the top and all of those people from other nations at the bottom paying tribute to them. That's why when we fell so hard. And those conversos, those more current Franciscans, in order to keep what they had, became more, again, earthbound and then into aspects of slavery to take birthright, which is what's going on now. We have a brother right now from the temple we want to give love and light and respect to, and inshallah get a speedy return out of the jaws of the so-called beast due to their own negligence, as usual. So, due to the fact that we don't have things like Chinatown, for instance, is a city-state, meaning that it has its own rules, its own laws, all of that. Same thing with Little Italy, same thing with all of that. They got their own way of dealing with things. The only neighborhoods that are really police like that, heavy, are so-called black and Latino neighborhoods. That's just a fact. Because they're the only ones under the jurisdiction of the civilitas mortis, which is the aspect of them not being able to have control of their own bodies. Therefore, they have to be policed for the welfare of the general policy of the office that functions as a subordinate corporation to the independent city-state, Washington, D.C. Much like the Vatican in Rome and or the like Luxembourg. So we as original people don't have that. Africans have that. You have a Sudanese community. Awesome. Good job. Sudanese have their own community. Nigeria has their own community. Don't let them lick you in the face too much. All of that, everybody has, because they also have a language. I can build on with the Elder Moore. He was talking about how we used to have our own language in the form of Pig Latin. But that was all betrayed and given up to the man decades ago. So, you think about the fact that everybody else in the world got their own language, but so-called black people, everybody else in the world got a place they could go back to except black people. The only place black people could go back to is what? Jail? But that's only been happening. Since after the war, specifically. There's always an element of this before the coming together of the Civil War, before the coming together of the nation. Yet, no. So that becomes the essence of what happens and what goes on with our so-called plight at this time. We're all stressed out. My generation and generation after me, or generations after me, that's it. Generations after me are looking at all of the stuff that they've done and not seeing a direct compensation with that. What do you need? We're not seeing a correlation between what we've put out there and the return. And those of us that have are dealing with the fact that the return they got is based upon all they gave up to get it. So in the case, we're seeing that in the case of the sister Pilar, who is Deion Sanders' ex-wife, who, albeit decided to use and claim her nationality as a so-called Moroccan American or Al-Moroccan, for whoever was schooling her, which I believe came from one of these prevalent websites that's out here based upon the terms that was used in the brief, however grandiose as it was still put into the record ex post facto, meaning that it came after the initial tenets of it were agreed upon and she was paid out. So regardless of whatever you want to do, now that you want to try it under Muslim customary law, Moroccan law, and all of that, that's not going to fly how you did it based upon who instructed you to do it. So that's an example of what I've been talking about for years on some of my older Facebook posts about celebrities orbiting the community upon them wanting certain aspects of lawfulness in their life, but wind up attracting inadvertently people who, albeit claim Moorish, are not necessarily living that under the tenets of love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. Now, and none of that means that you have to be passive. None of that says be passive to the point of non-defense. That's where the mufti aspect of your tenure as a Moorish American comes in, and how to execute matters dispassionately. You know, there's an element that goes around, like I said, that creates a backward stimulus in the populace, specifically in the male populace, to restrain oneself to a degree of inaction, which then creates a backwards point, because then you implode and then explode on those around you, you know, like a pent-up animal, because this society is based upon the illusion of non-savagery. But they keep their prisons and everything like savage institutions, you know, where men have to kill and rape to survive, as well as women. But that's not the purpose of that. That's why they say Yaqub did not build prison houses for his people. But see, to get totally draconian, they can't do that either, because then that makes them look like they trying to control everything, even though everybody know they are. So long as they don't move on everybody unilaterally, then they feel like people still feel like there's a means of control. So long as the bombs is over there in Palestine and all that, and not in Wisconsin and all that, it's all good. You know what I'm saying? So they done made everybody believe that a man in a cave can control 2 airliners and crash them in the buildings and stuff, which now allowed them to build a new building that's 1,776 feet high. So none of you will ever see it in your lifetime. Will probably ever go to the top in your lifetime. So whatever rituals and stuff they put up there for people to be involved with, for them to keep their power, is going to keep going on. People who agree to get on by using the magic of the old empire, but none of the virtuous tenements. And those of us that strive to maintain the virtuous tenements usually become outcasted, because we're not willing to co-opt the general fundamental principles of the empire or the people to become a, vessel for bamboozlement. So, seeing all of this energy in transition from, life and death in the past month and a half, is definitely taking a toll on my level of patience when it comes for what has become most important for us in this community that used to seem to be about a theme body. It seemed like you could just say whatever now, like whatever, yo. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like when Bobby was like, yo, you need to have morals and shit. Like, okay, I understood it to a point, but You know, nowadays, dudes people say anything. They'll basically sell you anything now, anything. And I mean, like, specifically in the community. Anything is good now. Everything that was bad was good. Everything was good was bad. Like, it's weird, man. Like I said, in terms of security and intellectual property or anything else, is basically under any government is going to be found in the courts of law. You know what I mean? Meaning that anything that they want to perceive or get done or want to be looked at as done become a paramount issue. So whatever is number one or becoming number one in the public eye is what is focused on, and then the propaganda machine is built up around that. And then the doppelgangers that were already sleeper agents in are activated to become the so-called fictitious heads of that, while those people who've been in it long enough and who was doing what back in the days when the whole shit started. Like with any movement. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So it's a vibrational instance where we're all being confronted with our own, again, level of involvement and how far, what we saw ourselves coming into any form of consciousness that we came into for. I mean, like I said, most of these people you see working together all the time, these people don't even like each other. These people hate each other. You know what I'm saying? And that's cool, if they're working together and you see an actual change and upliftment in the overall aspect of these communities. But as somebody in the field, on the ground, every day, tutoring kids and talking to people, they got parents that's striving to be conscious and all of that, going through issues with the so-called thing. That's the issue with us. We're always going through something. We're always going through some sort of issue. You know what I mean? And that be the issue. That's why they got issues listed as a race. You know what I'm saying? Because it really is. And everybody is a part of that race to a degree at this point, because we're all dealing with it. LODE VE. So yeah, man. So the little victories that you get in terms of establishing yourself, at least in the identity that, in a sense, was left for you by your forefathers, is something that you feel called to more than something that you need to necessarily right away pull out and prove. So, you know what I mean? It's not, how I look at moral science, it's not really the same as other, and I'm sure every other person from their perspective views the universe the same way. So I'm not trying to necessarily put it above anything else. I'm just saying that to me it's the most all-inclusive of everything else, because it shows and proves in the ancient time how all of that was brought to us by these people who genetically we were more like than disliked, and were purposely disenfranchised from. It's not like the old Senegalese. It's not like the old Senegalese people would look at like their culture today, and they can know that it was different prior to the French coming in there, but they still maintained a degree of their language, even though they adopted that form of French during their form of occupation. But to this day, they still got their own indigenous language. Our indigenous language is hip-hop that was now adopted by the world. So again, everything that we get or we create, we seem to just have to give up to everybody else. So it never looks like they come from a unified people. It always looks like they're coming from a different. No, I'm on.
But Tony, the one that isn't hard was all messed up.
No, well, you have to just work with it. Figure out a way to use it.
Oh, I'm not supposed to do that yet.
Yes, you can.
I
Figure it out.
don't know
Use your
how
imagination.
to.
Use your imagination. You know what I'm saying? It's not like they become part of any of that. They don't have no way of discerning, you know, they always have a way of discerning their culture from the culture that they are living in. And when they migrate to a specific area, they all migrate to that area to maintain that culture within that area. So even though they may be picked upon by whatever Caucasian people or black people are in that area, they still have their own cultural base that allows them to have associations and national organizations to protect their political interests as Senegalese people. Native so-called black people don't have that. The only thing that provides that for them in the manner that is equivalent to those foreign aspects is the Moorish Science Temple of America. And that's just the truth when used and done properly. The man made it whatever we needed it to be based upon us being beneficiaries of it universally. So in debating on the merits of this person and where he came from and how he wasn't this and all of that, like people could do all of that, man. Let them do that because they do that to any historical figure. If you make it big enough in history, one day they'll do it to you. That's just what people like that, but those are called pundits. They're used to perpetuate a disinformation campaign against it because whatever they're really against is what's really you needed before. And due to the level of personal attacks within the whole agenda that is being raised against whatever historical individual, you see, you get to see who's kind of behind it, if you know what to look for. So I mean, being a Moor is being also a Moorish scientist. So a Moorish scientist looks at truth as fact, which brings forth fact as truth. You see what I'm saying? The law don't deal with truth. The law just deal with fact. So the law deal with whether it happened or not. Truth deals with why it happened. You see what I'm saying? It's like a different modality. So you're dealing with a different form of resolution. There is no resolution in these tribunals other than banishment. That's all they got for everybody is jail. They don't have no competency programs, and they don't have no programs that's really funded to make sure people get better because they don't want people to really get better. The state governments don't want that, and the federal government doesn't really want that because that allows the people who occupy those seats positions of power or rule. That's why you have to have sex and all that type of stuff in those positions. The higher up, the more deviant it is because they've tainted the very fundamental of it so much while at the same time keeping a so-called pristine image where people know it's dirty. They know it, but they'll still support it because in the end, the people know that these people have guns and bombs. It was bankers that dropped the bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki and all that. That was the military-industrial complex. They was at war with Germany. Why they dropped it on Japan? To set them back 100 years. Didn't work, but it did lighten up the country. See what I'm saying? Degenerative and regenerative. These effects are universal and apply to all. Therefore, all fall under the scrutiny of what is just or what is unjust. And then we are forced to live with those choices. Those are what creates the so-called moments that lead into what we perceive as history, which is a story told to us by people who are known to be liars. So you could be secured. You can have a secured interest. You could be a creditor. You could be a secured creditor. But you don't want to be a secured party creditor because you don't want to be party to nothing. Because party is another form of being partial to what the party is, which is the carnival, the carnage in all, or the carnage of evil. This was a time in which, mating season happened openly among humans, specifically Asiatics, where the women will put on the plume, just like in Labor Day and all that. It's been going over thousands of years. That's how, at one point, women would choose husbands. They would parade in uniform synchronicity. And the men would come down with the elephants. So instead of the elephants, we got the sound barges. The elephants with the drums, we got the sound barges. And now under the jurisdiction of a foreign power in our own country. But we've been made alien to it. The only thing that addresses that in the so-called black community is the Moral Science Temple of America. No other so-called black movement is addressing the fact that black people have no political standing other than integration, which is basically being repealed through the repealing of affirmative action. Now, how many white children? There's been over almost 12,000 so-called white students have been graduated in the past year from different black colleges. But on the other hand, it's only been like maybe 2% of black kids coming out of these white colleges. However, there's more so-called black people in school than in jail. But people have been believing that lie. We've been believing the opposite so long. You can't tell them that. So to say that there's definite inequality between so-called lighter-skinned people and darker-skinned people in this country is a relative fact and the truth. But it is frowned upon to say openly, because then it's based on this whole fake equality. They are making it seem like you're basically choosing your race above everybody else, even though everybody else chooses their race above yours, except when it comes to entertainment and basketball and sex, strip clubs, liquor, right? Cooning, right? Skin bleaching. That's when so-called black people come up. Those are the issues that affect us every day. Weaves, alopecia, self-hate. These other races are not necessarily dealing with that. They're dealing with they're dealing with the fact that their cultures have not raised vibrationally themselves up enough to bring about a unification of anybody within their culture. So they're dealing with basically the collapse and the rise of women in their society. Like if you really study the war that went down in Liberia, it was not only demonic, it was almost interdimensional. There was all types of things going on. Men wearing bridal costumes, bride and grooms going out, just shooting and killing each other. It was really horrible. The same thing is going on now in Chirac. You know what I mean? Whereas a couple of years ago was going on in L.A. A couple of years before that was going on in Miami. It's regardless. It's going on regardless, but the point is, this is what's been happening with everyone. So this lament that we all have of this time, or in time gone by, when we could produce something and actually, see us as a people move up. We have to become less idealistic and more realistic in our understanding that it's more about how you are manifesting your temple. Therefore, anyone that can be spiritually made outside, meaning where people can go to for camaraderie and things like that, are great. But in that, we at least have to be on the page enough to understand what is the purpose of it is really for. And that can't really be shared on vessels and venues like this. Because unlike all these other people, there's too much real shit that got to get done. Need to be doing. So, because most people ain't willing to be doing that, you got to do what you do. Well, I got to do what I do. However, I can only do it to a point that it is of an effort that is not depleting my overall function. Because real talk, niggas is not going to be as candid as me. Because I don't have any affiliation other than with the temple. That's it. You know what I'm saying? But I know everybody, and everybody know me. You dig? So there's only things that can be done within the temple confines of a temple for other people to see actual progression of what it is they want to see, what it is they're sending people who have websites to hope to see. But like I said, the real in situations like this don't automatically get funded, because there's also an element of the people I realize looking at my father in that casket, that there's an element of the people that no matter how much good you're doing for them, they only want to do but so much to help you, because they don't want you to eventually move on. They always want you to be there. You dig what I'm saying? And all of us have been guilty of that at one time or the other in our lives. However, we can't stay in that judgment, because that keeps us stagnant to what is to behold us in the future. So it's the same as overthinking so much the act that you psych yourself out of it. We've all been guilty of that. If you was born from a womb, that is, you know what I'm saying? A black womb, a so-called black womb specifically. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. If anybody wants to donate, they can donate to ducateers@gmail.com. Like I said, every bit helps. A lot would help a lot more, However, I've never been a salesman of, you can't sell something that was given to you. I can only get information and spread information for the time that it's taken me to do so. Yes, I'm on. How did you? Because you took the thing out. Where's the thing at?
What thing?
The little screw that was on it.
I don't know.
Give me the batteries first. a thing where we gotta almost get out of our own heads, because we all had dreams and things we wanted to do before we really came into consciousness as to who we are. So if it's possible for us to achieve those things, we still need to do that, as prove to ourselves that we have or had the intent to continue what it is we initially started. It's just, we are blessed like everybody else in the world to have a cultural identity that depicts us as something more than what people have projected us to be. So I don't see why that is any less celebrated than anybody else's. It's real. It's like the more controlled and the more focused I've gotten on striving to establish the temple, the less I've had to deal with other entities dealing with me in a manner that is unconstitutional, for lack of a better word. So with all of the stuff that's been happening, that's why we haven't been on the air, because I've been in the real world, you know, dealing with things that we as Asiatics go through in this modern time. But again, this modern time is based on an ancient time, and having an ancient tenure in time gives us a greater opinion and a greater means of growth that we can share with our offspring, and inshallah again create a community that is, because that is your right as an American. Well, it's done, Amor. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. If anybody wants to call, they can call 347-637-1184. Take it down, man. You want another piece of what? I'll bring it to you, Amor. Yes. Yeah, man. So, yeah, watching it's Sister Pilar going through what she's going through, trying to get this money, but claiming herself to be a J, you know what I'm saying? That also is into play because she, again, did adopt the Jesuit by being married to him, a 33rd degree Mason, you know what I'm saying? Now, what's interesting is that Rick Ross, the chick that he was with, was also a Moor who he was in a car with that they shot up. She was a Moor as well. She was an eel, or at least claiming to be one. So there is this aspect of our community in that arena, you know, but depending on, you know, again, are real or how dedicated those Moors are, regardless. But it does show you that, again, this is becoming more and more prevalent. Okay, but why are you taking it off, Omar? You're watching again. All right, Omar. So again, for some reason, you having your own distinct identity outside of the continent of Africa is a very deep problem for some people. Sit down. I don't want to hear you something like that. Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, that's what's up. You know, most of the stuff that you're seeing on TV, all of that is farce. You already know that. All of that is theater, and all of that is prelude for the alley, which is this whole agenda of them, the proverbial them, creating enough time vortex to get people sucked up into, which is this war between them and Russia. That's looming, and that has been looming for a while, but it's very prelude to the real war that's going to be between the U.S. and China. So all of that being said, you have the rise of the so-called Latin American countries, which is basically New Africa. And the creation of a new black Chinese strain, or Asiatic strain in the northern Sudan, as well as other parts of Africa that they've been buying up, like in Nigeria and all that. But they have their own laws against, even though they got their own laws against interbreeding and Chinese workers with African people or whatever. I had to eat something. So that became, like I said, the basis of them creating this genre of black people that would now war with each other based on ideologies. Like there were certain things so-called black people we just didn't do, or we just wasn't known for doing. You know what I'm saying? You could just hear it and be like, oh, that's a black person. But recently, you're hearing things where black kids are shooting their own parents and killing their parents and all of this. All of that is another sign that there's an aspect of the species that's seeking to extinct it. Therefore, the apoptosis gene has been activated in some elements in our community, and there are so-called melanated people looking to take other melanated people out. as clinical and as cold as it sounds, it's a natural thing. This over predominance of homosexuality, lesbianism community. I'm not talking about necessarily a lifestyle choice. I'm talking about as a vessel of recruitment. You know what I'm saying? Political or militaristic agenda. That element of homosexuality and lesbianism is being forced on so-called breeders. Who you get rumors, of the so-called pink mafia and all that. If you want to find out roots of that whole agenda and that whole side of the thing with these people, you can get the book Pink Swastika. And it gets into all of that. The tie that binds and why people in power and low underbosses and stuff deal with shit like that. Chivalry is not dead. There's still people in the world that's killing each other with swords. You understand what I'm saying? There's still people killing each other in the world with made arrows out of wood sticks, jungle twine. You understand? Animal sinew, the world is much more primordial than we would like to really accept, I think. And seeing death close up like that of your sire, you feel kind of like Luke in Star Wars, It's like, okay, this is it for this dude, you know what I mean? But his expression, his genetic line is now summed up in me. You could also read the book Once and Future King, or the essays of Marcus Aurelius. Sorry, I haven't eaten. So that's what's kind of going down. It's I'll run you back for it. You just had the orange one. You don't need it. No. All right. So the overdevelopment of where you want to be and where you are now sometimes doesn't always gel. So when you get to that point, I'm seeing radical changes is what needs to go down. Because there used to be a thing called patronage in the so-called black community, but that only exists now if you go through the channels of Blue Lodge Masonry or some sort of three so-called religion ritual. One of the three branches, Muslim, Islam, Judaism. You got to be part of one of those to gain access like that. The question is, how does people who come from countries that are dirt poor come over here and then have mad money? A lot of the time they work for it. We don't like to believe that. We like to believe that they get subsidies and things like that, but these people have been preyed upon too. They just shot a cab driver and put it on World Star. That's what I mean. You got black people who don't have no code no more. They just wild. They just do whatever, man. And what's happening is that they're putting more and more people through that penal system. And that is destroying the fabric of America's youth, not the United States, America. America is a slave of the city-state of the United States. That, in my opinion, was really set up to be a tax shelter and a foreign entity to deal with while we Americans got everything together. Yet, it's been disingenuous and disloyal to black manhood to consider yourself an American, which then creates the dissatisfaction between those so-called blacks who are Moors or not Moors, who identify with the so-called American spirit. You know what I'm saying? Which is freedom. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? That's the bottom line. You know what I mean? However, my understanding of freedom is drastically different at some point than your perception of what freedom is. Because your perception of freedom may be based upon something that is actually not free. These people world governments have made it that freedom is what you have to fight for and prove that you should have. And then even when you get it, they try to work and destroy your government from the inside. So all of us don't want to be free the same way. So once you hook up with a group that want to be free like you, that's how you should rock. That's your vine and that's your fig tree. Now, if that don't happen to be the right one in the end, that ain't nobody to blame but you. But at least you had the choice, right, to decide what it is you want. That's the illusionary aspect of this life. So we're striving to move ourselves out of a situation that we have found ourselves in based upon relying or putting forth effort and expecting a certain return. So once that is not put forth or that is not reciprocated, like for instance, I've looked at some of the other people who have, not in our community, but in other communities that have their shows, and a lot of these people have, heavy corporate funding. And it either means that these people are funded from the beginning corporately or their so-called message has broken through to enough people that the corporation doesn't care. Like I said, if they'll give they'll give anybody money until it becomes unpopular. You understand? That person becomes unpopular. So there should be no reason why the so-called Moorish American community is not represented globally, internationally, through entertainment or whatever else. And there's no reason why people or our people can't use that to then give back to actual temples and things like that that are creating, inshallah, emissaries and people like that that can actively demonstrate and get things done if given the position to do so. That's what I mean about patronage. That's why you can see Mormons in the hood and ain't nobody gonna bother them. Because, again, they done made black folks, 9/11 made black folks scared of white folks. Again. When you read the book, How the Irish Became White, the section in it that basically talks about that they weren't racist towards black or African people. They always make the distinction. It was just that there was no other way for them to come up in the eyes of a white man without having somebody else to oppress. So being that the white man was oppressing everybody, including the Chinese and the Mexicans, the Irish then could come on and hold down the blacks for the white man, and then the white man would ease up, and that's how they filled up all of the police thing. That's why whether you black, white, Chinese, they're going to give you a funeral with 40 clovers and all of that. You know what I'm saying? Because the Irish got that on lock. But they became harder and more racist on blacks and Africans almost than anybody else. But these are people, again, who ancestrally came from under the jurisdiction of Moors. The whole Cladogar ring that they wear, that the Irish little girls wear, the two hands holding the heart with the crown, was designed by an Irishman under the jurisdiction of a Moor who bought him from another Moor when he was doing trades in the Hebrides. In the Hebrides. At least that's how the story goes. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it all kind of fits together. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, if it's not working how it needs to work, then we need to evaluate what we're doing. So that's what's been happening. In the process of that, I'm quite sure you've been going through your own reorganization as well, and you're striving to use Super Heru Radio as a forum to, keep people abreast of what's going on mentally, spiritually, and physically. All of this background noise that they call the news that's on now, all of it is basically song and dance. All of it's distraction now. None of it's really real, and some of it is not even real. It's not even probably even being broadcasted from this planet no more. Like, you don't know where this stuff is coming from. So what you got to know is what your community is and how that community is going to be structured. And that's where I think we all are as a people universally, as Moors, as Americans, as Moorish Americans, as Moorish American nationals, as an Asiatic race, as a North African people. The fact that we do have a distinct identity that defines and distinguishes us in an ancient tenure that can be verified and classified in law, that predates being black in the modern context as it's been given to us over the years through all of the different cycles of thought that really came from one cycle of thought, brought down to us by an empire that we happen to be beneficiaries of, although, be it, a lot of us don't want to accept it due to the fact that we feel that it's somehow involved in the slavery of Africans, which did happen towards the decline. However, you show me one people on the planet especially one African people on the planet that was not enslaving another African people. And I'll show you a liar. You show me one European power that wasn't doing that to another European power, I'll show you a liar. There's nobody on the planet that ain't do that. That's fighting for world dominion and control. Nobody. They used Napoleon to bring down the Habsburgs, which resulted in World War One. So, you know what I'm saying? They used Osama to bring down the towers, right? Right? They used Washington to bring down the British, right? You see the trend? That was the age of the hero. There is no hero anymore. This is the age of the new terrorists. So now they're trying to create new terrorist groups. Yeah, and that's what pretty much goes down. So, let's see, 980. You want Super Heru Radio? Peace.
Yes, peace.
Peace.
How you doing,
peace,
brother?
Queen.
Peace.
How are you, Queen? How are you?
I'm doing good, How is the family doing?
One day at a time.
Good. Well, I've been listening, and I just want to say, just continue doing the good work, brother. Just continue the good work.
Thank you, Queen.
And just I'm enjoying the Truth Be Told also when it does publish with you and the Queen.
Thank you, Queen.
Yes, yeah, good. Just the goodness, and I'm very grateful for you and the Queen, and the family structure that you have there, and the information that you broadcasting into and depositing into the spirit and in the minds of our people is very well needed. So
thank you,
I'm tremendously grateful. That. Yes, brother. Yes. So peace and love to you and the family, and
you as
I'm
well.
grateful
love and life
for
to you, Earth.
Yes. And thanks for the show tonight.
Thank you,
You're
Queen.
welcome.
I really appreciate the support. I'll send that on to the Queen as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
That was really peace. That was really peaceful. Okay. 202. You on Super Heru Radio?
Islam, Aseer.
Islam, Queen. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, brother?
One day at a time. You know how it is.
Yeah, you sound I don't know, you sound a little heavy today. Like you don't sound too much like yourself. Your energy's a little low.
Yes, ma'am. It's been a very, very interesting month and a half. You know, with my father passing, to all of the stuff and dealing with that. You know, it's very interesting things that have happened since then as well.
Yeah.
But God is good, you know.
Absolutely, and may he have a rewarding trip into the essence. That's for sure. He's out of this mess,
Indeed.
you know.
Indeed.
He's not here anymore. He can go and do the great works now.
Inshallah. I've been really asking him to put the work in. I'm on. No. Go over it. No, I'm on. Go back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Aseer, I had a question I wanted to ask, but I do want to just commend you first before I ask the question for just the stupendous work that you and Selena do among our community, it's just rich. And there's nobody out here doing it like you. It really isn't. And I've listened to so many people, so many shows, and have pretty much gotten to a point that I've cut everything off, and I'm just listening to you at this point because you're the only thing out there, you and Selena, that's real. And I really mean that with all my heart. Y'all are just, appreciate that. It's like, it's so real. It's the real deal, and we know that it's coming from a good space. It's coming from the higher essence when you speak, and it's just so needed. And I just want you to know with all my heart, and my son as well, that we are just so thankful. If nobody else is telling you that we're so thankful for the work that you're doing for our people. I have tried to make donations to you, and there were some other people on Facebook that were inboxing me and saying they've been wanting to make donations or trying to get in touch with you, but we've been having a hard time trying to reach your email, just a lot of different things. So it's not it's not like we're not trying to make the donations.
Oh, I appreciate that. I could imagine that there are so-called blocks, you know what I mean, out there.
Yeah, there's some blocks or something going on there because we're trying to get the money to you. We're just not able to get through for some reason. And
I can give you the main stuff that we have, which is our email is houseofl@hotmail.com.
Yep, that's where I was trying to get in touch with you, through House of L.
Yeah,
at Hotmail.
That's the main joint. Yeah, that's the main joint. We cleared it out a little while ago, so inshallah, if you email us there again, it should go through. But if not, you could always hit me up at Aseer Ali Cordoba on Facebook. I'm on there as Aseer Ali Cordoba.
I know all your spots, and I tell you, I've been trying to hit all of them because not only did I want to make a donation, I was also trying to follow up with you as far as doing my nationality paperwork for me and my son. And for some reason, we didn't get anything back. And then there was at one point you did get back to me, and you were saying something about I could actually tune in or get in on one of your classes, and then I had a hard time getting in on the class. So
if you email me now, I'll definitely, inshallah, be able to get it.
Are you still helping with the paperwork? Are you still helping with the nationalizing paperwork?
Yes, ma'am, through the temple. Through an official temple, actually. So definitely, if you email me through that, you should be able to do it. Good job.
Okay, and here's my question. Taj Tariq is here.
Say that again, Queen.
Yeah. Here's my question. Taj Tariq is here in my area in Washington D.C. And he's actually trying to nationalize a lot of people in this area. I haven't been to the class yet, but I'm going to start going because I actually just found out that he was here in this area. One of the things that I was concerned about is I wanted to do my name change on my Social Security and birth certificate, and one of his associates was telling me that was not necessary for me to change the information on either of those instruments or documents. And I was concerned about whether I should put an ill and a bay in my name, or should it be an ill at the end of my name or a bay. I'm just really confused about the ill and the bay, and about whether I need to change the information on my Social Security and birth certificate. And so I've heard different information from you throughout the years as far as that's concerned. And then I'm hearing different information from Taj's people. So my question is, what do you have to say about what Taj is doing and the differing information so that I can make sure that I'm on the right track as far as getting my son and I nationalized. And that's all I wanted to ask.
Well, definitely you want to be one or the other. There are a lot of people who are like Il Bay and Il Day and all that. That usually comes from the Washington demonstration. A lot of the Washingtons were El Bays and El Days, or use day specifically. In my opinion, and how I've been instructed by how it was done by most of the old temples, was that you were either a Il or a Bay. A woman could be a Bay Il if, let's say, she married a Bay, and, you know what I mean, she would adopt his title to hers. That's a little different. But in terms of being both, that's like two clans in one. When we're a two-clan system, which is what distinguishes us from everybody else. You know what I'm saying? That's why on the dollar there's two seals on it, which is the only dollar like that in the world, because of the two governments that were working somewhat in tandem. So you want to be one or the other. Some imams and sheikhs and them have their ways of doing stuff in terms of discovering which one you are and all that. Me, I'm more practical. To me, it's what it is that you feel that you're more resonated to, either the Elohim side or the Bay side. It's up to you. And then once that...
Can my son take on an Il and a Bay, or should he be like me as a woman, just take one Il or Bay?
I think it's always better to decide what side of the clan you're in. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So that way, you know, you're more resonated in one root as opposed to splitting or trying to be of both. Because you are of both. You know what I mean? We're both comprised of Ils and Bays. It's just that when you, as a declaration, put out what you are, it's good to be one or the other. It's like being Republican or Democrat. You know what I'm saying? More than being Zulu or you know, Mandinka or something like that.
Now, should we remove, change, put the Il and Bay on our birth certificate and Social Security card? I didn't want to change our name. Okay.
No, you don't change your name. What it is you would be doing would be correcting that. But that I would talk to you about in private, because there's so many people doing stuff, whatever. So if you email me directly in lieu, as per of this conversation, I'll be able to deal with you on that, how to do that specifically.
Okay, Aseer. Thank you so much. And, brother, keep up the good work. And, you know, may your father have a safe trip into the Essence. And I'm just wishing the absolute best for you and Selena and the more.
Thank you, Queen. I really appreciate that. And
You're
please
welcome.
spread that to all the people that you've been building with on it. We appreciate them as well.
Okay, and just so you know, you'll see romaine, like the lettuce. You'll get an
ma'am.
email from me. Like, just remember the lettuce, romaine. That's me.
I remember. All right, Queen.
Okay. All right, peace, brother. Thank you so much.
Queen. Love and light to you and the young prince.
Same.
Let's see. What was that? 803 on Super Heru Radio.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you, Queen?
Alhamdulillah. I'm just so impressed. I'm so grateful to speak to you, Brother Aseer, and Sister Selena. I'm so proud of her organic product line. I'm just so overjoyed that Allah has blessed both of you tremendously. I've been listening to your radio show now for about 2 years, and I've learned so much about international law. It's so informative.
So much.
And I want to encourage all the listeners, send what you can, even if it's just a $5 donation, if it's a $20 donation. I want everybody listening to this show, send what you can to Brother Aseer and Sister Selena. May Allah bless you for your zakat, and may Allah triple and double and increase it, because when you sow into a family that's so powerful, like the Aseer Kadoba family, Allah's going to bless you. So I just want to say, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah.
May Allah bless you and continue to increase you, inshallah.
Thank you, Queen. Thank you so much, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. Really good night.
Good night, Queen. Salam. All praises due to Allah. That's really nice, man. Thank you. Sometimes I have to take it in, you know. Because the blessings are always of what the people aspire, you know. And I don't want to act like I'm not appreciative or grateful for that. Because I really am. Because like a lot of other brothers who started speaking or spoken out, whether they agree with me or not, or whether I agree with them or not, there was a time when nobody was listening to any of us. So just the very fact that brothers actually have a platform to holler and cuss each other out on is actually really good, considering where we came from, considering them having to stand on soapboxes every day, or worse, having to do it under a torchlight because you never know when they're going to come and try to kill everybody or rape everybody, men and women. Like America was driven crazy by the United States. It really has been. The United States is not going to stop itself. It can't. So for people to act like they're trying to get into that to help it do that are actually committing sedition, especially if they're card-carrying members of them without any classification of them being different. And the rule of thumb or the law of reason stands to say that if ill or bay is also a title of nobility as a necessary inheritance of a Moor, whether from the temple or not. If that is also listed as a title of nobility under Title 28, as well as a title of nobility in terms of international ecclesiastical government, and the United States cannot gain access to or negate or adopt titles of nobility, that means if you receive that name and get that name on everything that is governmental that comes from them, then that means that they're not dealing with a citizen of the United States. They're dealing with a true American citizen, as it says on your temple card. That means then that you are falling under a jurisdiction of a law that, if given the right manner of expression, can get you what it is you want. Because you're always in the right. They're always trying to force you, try to convince you that you're the trustee to them, when they're really the trustee to you. And that's what the whole dance is about. So you could be a sovereign this and a secure party that, but you don't want to be party to nothing, because party always wind up in some sort of controversy, if you notice, like party to the action, party to the judgment, you know what I mean? Black Panther Party, Republican Party, this party, the Democratic Socialist Party, which is really a National Socialist Party, which is the black version of the National Socialist Party. Democratic Socialists are like the Heru movement and these other so-called black liberation movements that had offshoots that came out of the so-called Black Panther movement. But again, all these movements have been checkmated. All of those movements have been checkmated. They think the more science been checkmated due to the fact that the people that's out there promoting it the wrong way is the forefront that people are going to go to, and then creating pseudo vehicles, mainstream vehicles for people to go and then learn about Moors through these people is very different than them coming to real people asking about it. So people ask me all the time, how come they don't ever holler at you about the hidden colors and all that? And half the stuff they talk about, a lot of the pictures is from your DVDs. I said, well, I don't own the pictures that we all use. And the question is, why don't they have any real Moors? That's figreeing. See, that's a real Moorish term, figreeing. You know, people from our class know what that is. But that's essentially a manner of talking about the national headdress. I love you too, baby. The national headdress of our people. Yeah, they are. Enjoy your bath. So enjoy your bath right now. So it's all become somewhat ritual and somewhat farce. You know, so we just got to be prepared and bring about what it is we need as a unified people. Yet the unity that we seek is really coming from the fact that we actually are unified behind this government that was here, whether they want to accept it or not, whether they want to believe it or not, because they were not the government that enacted the Articles of Confederation. They categorically were not. People don't know this, man. Slavery went back in this country to 1654 with a dude named Anthony Johnson. He had an indentured servant named Robert Castor, and Robert Castor was under him. Robert Parker, I believe. And Robert Parker was under him. No, Castor. So Castor, he wanted him to still work longer for him. So Castor was like, nah, my indenture is up with you. I'm a noble Moor. I'm going to go do me. So he left and went in the employ of a free white person named Robert Parker. So now all three of these dudes is black. You dig? All of these dudes is black that we talking about. This is 1654. This is in Virginia. So these three black dudes, one is the slave master. The other is the indentured servant. The other is another free white man that the indentured servant went to work for after he got free off of his papers. The court decided that he could hold him indefinitely. And so the first slaveholder in Virginia was this black man that opened up the way for now black people to own people of their own race, because up to that point they was owning white people. And then that's when laws came out that Christians could no longer be purchased by Moors or Hindus in the laws of North to South Carolina. Look it up. Look it up. But they ain't talking about no RBGs during that time. They ain't talking about no Garveyites at that time. They ain't talking about no Africans at that time, because the Africans that they talking about is under jurisdiction of them. So they made a distinction between those that was under that and those that was under Muslim customary law, which is Moorish empire law. Not necessarily the law of Sharia. The law of Sharia is the religious law based solely on the Quran. Peace be unto Muhammad, a.k.a. Hammurabi Bey. But again, these Jews that we talking about, we supposed to have a shrine in the temple where everybody in the world could come and get the knowledge. Imagine we had a spot right now where everybody in the world, no matter where you at, where you listening to what I'm saying, you could come and I could actually show this shit to you in a place that's reminiscent of what I'm talking about. Imagine that. See, everybody else got it. Everybody else got it. So I'm not talking about creating no religion. Because I can't create I didn't create this. You know what I'm saying? None of it. We all created it. I'm just spitting it to you in a manner, inshallah, that you see that there is a whole nother aspect of this that these Negroes cannot and will not and won't stop not telling you about. That's just what it is. They can't. Because this is talking about freedom of all humanity. You dig what I'm saying? Like they broke the Black Panther and Storm up. Like I told you, it was going to do that. So as great as it was coming together, it's more right for them in the destruction of the relationship. But in the first comic that happened, the African dictator said, yo, this is the end of humanity as we know it. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what it is. That's what it represents. Okay. I'm going to run your backward for you right now. You're going to get in right now. So that's become the center of everybody's reality. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is composed. Yeah. Yeah, I am. Like, it's real. Like, some people be like, yo, don't let them hear you do that. Yo, at this point in the game, what difference does it make? Like, I'm doing it really, it looks like a box. You dig what I'm saying? But John the Revelator wrote everything that he did, said that he got the whole inspiration that came from 3 cracks that led to a little hole in the rock wall at the island of Patmos when he dropped the revelation. So am I equating myself to John the Revelator? No, not in the sense that I'm a prophet, but in the sense that anything that is done under the pressure of something creates something heavier. However, the pressure of everything has now become, it is equated to almost a stagnation. Me and the Queen did the calculation based upon all of the time and the fact that zodiac of the time that we're in, and based upon the level of involvement and commitment that we're in. So yeah, that's what's going down, people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all right, so come and get in the bathtub now, please. So we, based on our calculations, by the time our people really see the actual progress that we're supposed to have, and we put until about 2025 to 2075. So that's like, not necessarily in our lifetime. So what we have to, as a people, do is create the panel and the structure for our children to inherit our culture, how it is to be preserved for the next generation. You understand? How we supposed to do it. Let's go. So we are people who happen to have a way of habit, a way of being, and a way of doing things, and have to create the mercantile thing. So when you see people from Bahrain and all that, and they doing their thing, they dress in their national habit. They in their all-white chic steez, and these are some of the most depraved people in the world. Some of the crazy stuff they be paying these black video vixen prostitutes to do over there is insane. Then these girls come over here, use that money to get into the music game and become great international successes. Meanwhile, dealing and having all the psychological trauma of having to be defecated on and have sex with little boys and eat feces and have sex with, like, crazy stuff they have these women do. And these are so-called Arabs, because there's a whole element of the Arab culture that they have perpetuated was increasingly homoerotic, ultra oppression of women. You can't be that oppressive of women and not have something wrong with you. You understand? Women are not supposed to be oppressed like that. And I'm not talking about these American women that have chosen to become harlots of Babylon, you know, where expression here to the American woman represents how many men you've allowed to yourself to sleep with or move on from, but you only count the ones that you was in a relationship with. Like, that whole era of women has been downgraded and turned against itself. With women don't even recognize herself. She's just so used to now thinking about things like bleaching and what white man and Justin Timberlake and Bieber and all these niggas do is call you niggas. But what happens is they get niggas to come up and defend these white niggas because they need to perpetuate you as a nigger, as a Negro, as somebody that's always coming from an African slave. But there's no such thing as African slave. You were never African. The way that they have said it, the closest thing you could be is North African. But that means you're from the Maghreb, which means, again, you're Asiatic. Because you descend from the part of the planet that was Asia, which means what God had made, that of the God gene, which is why you hold the name of the Creator, the Il or the Bay, added onto your original name, whatever that is. So that way you honor your mother and your father, but you're taking your mother or your father's name. You can't be a Moor and be hard on and hate women and all of that when your whole Quran, when your whole, steez is based on the woman, when the whole headdress you wearing is based on the construct of a woman, but you're going to tell her she can't wear one? You're going to make the woman look like a ninja because you can't control yourself? Yes, that's what the Arabs had to do. They tell you that they have ancestry that wasn't, like, they got them believing crazy stuff is my point. And they are of a different culture. They're the white people over there, and they're part of the world. Women can't even drive. Women got to go to the beach totally burqa'd out. And I'm not saying that women have to be in one-piece bikinis, topless, all that. I'm just saying that we come from a different culture where we respected and loved our women's bodies enough to allow them to express it how they wish. And that we have respect for ourselves enough not to rape and kill them and torture them and all of that because of their beauty and because of their body parts and all of that. So again, I'm a Moor. I'm not a Muslim. I give respect to Muhammad because I understand Muhammad as Hammurabi. Understand? And I know then that therefore Islam goes back another 250,000 years before they give it credit. So I don't go by their calendar. But that's me. That's how I'm raising my son, to the point where my other children are almost being forbid to be raised like this, to know this type of stuff. Their mothers would rather them be slaves with them, princesses with me. That's how sick these people are. But the irony is I found out about moral science through one of them. That's the irony. So what's the lesson in that for me? Be wiser in your choices, young man. You see? Does me a bunch of good now. But I have the wisdom now to know how to express myself and not be bound down with guilt from that. Things that I feel guilty about come from other things that are more personal, that I have to overcome. But they were nothing done to anyone else. See? Therefore, I don't have enemies the way other people have enemies. I have enemies that act as friends, or I have enemies that may at some point come to my aid or not. I have enemies that start or come out, like I said, as friends. You may have enemies that are more direct, people who are more aggressive, more defensive. My enemies are offensive. So because of that, I have to move a certain way because I understand. I know what a rodeo is. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about cowboy bull riding. I'm talking about a company rodeo. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like intelligent people rolling an okie doke thing on you, catching you up in some sort of honeypot or something. We are at war. The intelligence community is at war with us. People who actually think. You know how stupid Will Smith was to turn down the Matrix? Turned it down so Keanu Reeves could get it? What's wrong with you? But, whatever. The straight dude in that movie, the skin dude, who played Morpheus' opposite. You got to see this movie he did called Titus. It's actually Titus Andronicus, but it's Titus with a retelling, a reimagining of Titus with Anthony Hopkins as Titus Andronicus. You got to see this movie. And you got to see his part of Aaron the Moor in the movie and how he worked with Tamara, the queen of Gaul, who was taken prisoner. Her sons were sacrificed by the Romans. How she was able to get revenge by becoming Caesar's wife over Titus and his whole family, to the point where she got him to cut off, where Aaron and her got Titus to cut off his own hand to save his brother, save his sons, and then they sent the sons without their heads. Like, this is the type of Moorish draconian law these Romans totally was dealing with, man. And so how these Moors was pledged against Rome because of that, due to them coming from Carthage. So look at that movie. And how she wound up having a son for Aaron. And the son came out a straight Moor. You got to see this. But read the prose. Start to read the prose. Get in habit and read the prose of, like, Titus and Othello and shit like that with your children and your family and shit. And that's what I get to. That's why having a temple, you get to have balls and theater plays and all that. This is the type of shit we're supposed to be erecting. We not while we partying and doing what we need to do. You could be doing all that, but the Jews on Friday, they know what they got to do. On Friday, niggas think about going to the club. On Friday, niggas think about spending their money that they just made so they don't have to work to get next money. On Friday, the Jews and these other people was going to shoppers, pooling their money together and building up and putting money towards what they're doing and sealing it with the dance and having their children be together. So we supposed to be doing the same thing. So inshallah, thank you to all of the queens, the goddesses that called tonight to give their support and arms. I really appreciate it. Anybody else that's willing to donate, please do so at dukeateers@gmail.com. Also check out www.cordobaorganics.com as well as www.aseerthedukeateers.com, darkscope418.com, and check out Truth Be Told on YouTube. We'll be doing episode 10 soon, so you can check that, as well as check out us on Facebook, as well as at Dukeateers and at Selena Cordoba L on Twitter. Thank you guys for the retweets and everybody that's been send thanks and praise to the brother and all the brothers that are locked down right now. Sending his prayers to him, a brother from the temple, as well as prayers to our brother Ja, our other brother and his wife who went through a loss. We want to give thanks and praise and send powerful energy of love and light to them, as well as I dedicate this show to my father, G-Dad. We love you, and keep going, man. Just keep going, homie. Don't even worry about what's going on down here, but and stuff that is going to open up a way for us to be able to do more, to take some of the stress off of the things that we've been having to do this work on myself, the queen, animal, and the people. You know what I'm saying? And the nation, and the country, and the world, and the galaxy, and the universe. Inshallah. So, again, we want to give to everybody in the chat room, thanks for holding us down and being a good support base for us. And please spread the word. Again, if you want to donate, you can at dukeateers@gmail.com. We greatly appreciate it because it really helps. And this week, I definitely want to leave out with the Moorish prayer, which is Allah, Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, my salvation by night and by day through his holy prophet, Juali. Amen. And when I say Allah, I'm talking about arm, leg, arm, head. When I talk about Allah, I'm talking about arm, leg, arm, truth, which is, again, the black man and black woman, dark matter, dark energy, bringing forth what it is creation, which is the black so-called triple stage darkness black child who grows into the form of the bioluminescent Asiatic out of the Merkaba band into the carbon form of the original man, original woman, Moabite queen, king of the so-called planet Earth, Lord of Allah, Lord of the worlds. So again, love and light to everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Inshallah, I'll see you, if not next week, the week after. I think we're going to go to a bi-weekly schedule until we can get more things going how they need to be here. So until then, if you need to hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com for musical performances, lectures, book signings, in stores, whatever it is. Just please hit me up, houseofl@hotmail.com for donations, for emails, and then for donations is dukeateers@gmail.com. Peace.